Hello there. This is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you for episode 352. Santa, you batty shaming son of a bitch. Well, there we go, mumbling again. Well, a month and a half from being 1 year sober, and I'm still slurring my language without the alcohol. There you go. So, what? And I'm trying to stay away from those filling words. I just did it. But it is Christmas. We are in the Keys, and we do things a lot like you do in your neck of the woods. You know, they still do the tree lighting and all that stuff. We dress our dogs up with like reindeer. We do the lights things. The neighborhood, we're fortunate we have 4 houses in a row on our street that are decorated. The Keys aren't like your normal run-of-the-mill places, you know. Not everyone decorates for it. There's all reasons for not decorating. First of all, you know, maybe they're Jehovah's Witness, they don't do that stuff, or Jewish or non-religious, you know. I'm not super religious, but I still decorate for Christmas, and I still consider myself spiritual. But we have been not struggling, but we decorate the house. We always do a little twist on it. We did the icicle lights, and then we do some colored lights out front, decorating some of the bushes and trees and palms. And then our neighbor next door really stepped it up on either side of us. So we got a nice thing, and we got a person across the street. We have probably the highest percentage. We probably have almost 50% of the houses are decorated on our street this year, which is pretty much as good as it gets in most places in the Keys, unless you're on the street maybe in Key West or in Almirada, where almost all the houses are. But we have our main tree right in front of our government center at 102 mile marker 102, which is directly across from our restaurant, the Catch Restaurant and Bar in Key Largo. Please come and see me if you're down here during anytime, and just message me at jim@keysbartender.com, and I'll be on the lookout for you. Or, you know, if I should be looking out for you, I haven't had any stalkers, but I had some people come in. It's nice to have the people that listen to podcasts, and I've had more than a few come in, and they kind of already know me. And if you want me to know you, you can send me an email or anything like that. And I know I fucking curse and do shit like that, but you don't have to send me anything inappropriate, no pictures or anything like that. I mean, let's say it's a picture of you so I could be on the lookout for you, but it doesn't have to be in states of undress, which I haven't had that problem yet. So I'm envisioning that. See, am I hopefully thinking that? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but I'm not asking for that. What the topic on the episode I just wanted to open up with was, we all know the Rudolph story. It was originally, before it was a story, it was a song by, I gotta remember the guy. Maybe it was Will Rogers or Randolph Scott. Randolph Scott was a Western actor, but it was one of those guys who sang this song, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I guess the people that made the cartoon at Hanna-Barbera back in the early 60s, I think it was 1960 or something like that, they had only the song to work with. And, you know, the person who wrote the song probably thought that was a good idea to do it, but they really didn't think about it. You know, if you think about the messaging behind it, if Santa is this guy that travels around the world and, you know, takes care of children in the most innocent manner, meaning gives them gifts, fills their stockings, and all those things, that you figure Santa. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna have to pause this for a second. I'll be right back. One moment. Oh, we're back. Yes. When the wife calls, I pick up right away. And I apologize for that. But we were talking about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And first of all, if you do end up having your child ends up having a nose that glows, that generates its own light, then that is a serious problem. That's probably a radiation mutation or something like that. Could be radon. Could be like you're in one of those Nevada nuclear test sites and things like that. You should certainly go and see medical or seek medical advice for that. Go to the appropriate people. But the messaging behind it is that, the fucking reindeer, we're supposed to admire these reindeer, Comet, Blitzen, Prancer, on Donner, Dixon, Vixen, something, all those assholes. I mean, they're assholes if, that the main thing they did was make fun of Rudolph, and Rudolph having something that glowing nose is not just a abnormality. It's not like anomaly like being very tall and having red hair. It is an adaptation that he had. And that could probably be one of the ones that would be, considering what the reaction was, it would be a beneficial adaptation for reindeer that have to travel through bad weather to have the proper FAA required warning lights for, I guess that came about when that song came about. People say, well, it's funny, they're flying around, but they don't have any signaling lights on the reindeer. They don't have anything. You figure they would have maybe like a lantern or something like that, but the reindeer, so they're making fucking fun of Rudolph for whatever stupid games that they're playing, which are probably all daytime games, because if it couldn't be hide and seek at night, right? Because Rudolph couldn't play at night, hide and seek with the reindeer. One of those games, he wouldn't be able, even if they accepted him, he would have to be I guess he'd have to always be the one that's looking, because at nighttime you would have seen him, right? So, and Santa went along with it. Santa, in the cartoon, at least, Santa didn't go say where Santa was the CEO, head of the operations, head of the reindeer, all that stuff. I don't care who the main reindeer was. Santa's, if it's a pyramid, it's Santa, then it's arguably either the elves and then reindeer, or reindeer then elves. But Santa's at the top of that fucking power pyramid, and he should have put the kibosh on that, saying, whoa, that's not one of the messages we give, because, when the reindeer, when we take the sleigh out and we take presents to all the kids, we don't take to all the kids that are perfect or that are beautiful. We take it to all the kids. Now, in Santa Claus Coming to Town, they did the thing, it was, about checking the list and checking it twice. And he says, I guess they're all right. Just decided, he said, we'll just get all of them. He didn't say, we're just going to give it to the kids that aren't in wheelchairs, or the ones that aren't club-footed. It's just all of them. So he should have said that this is the messaging. This is what the messaging Santa's having. We're not going to go and ostracize Rudolph. And he would have been inside it anyway. And Rudolph would have just been in the chain of reindeer. And then it says, Rudolph, it should have been, oh, well, there happened to be this, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer had a very shiny nose. And if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All the other reindeer thought that was interesting. And they played a lot of games, except for hide and seek at night, because Rudolph would be always found. And, Rudolph, was the younger one, so he'd be further in the back. But Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer had a very shiny nose. If you say it glows. All the other reindeer would invite him to play, and they always let reindeer. Then came one foggy Christmas Eve. Did Santa came to say, hey, Rudolph, instead of being in the back row, why don't you go to the front row? And you know what? And one of the head elves go, Santa, that's a good idea. That fucking reindeer should have been right up there. And you know what? We need to get all the reindeers. If we can get all the reindeers, or all the leading reindeers with red noses, because you don't want to, if it's really bright, you don't want to be blinding the reindeer, Well, I guess not. You could be all the reindeer can have red noses. So they should have just, isolated. Now they could isolate with the gene CRISPR technology. If you don't know about gene CRISPR technology, it's isolating benevolent traits and getting rid of bad ones. So that red nose would say, hey, that's a good trait to have. So that would be eugenics. So that would be a bad thing. We'd be going down the wrong fucking road there. So see, it's a slippery slope. We make fun of Rudolph for having a maladaptation or a positive adaptation, and then they use it. And then some crazy elf, let's say an elf with a German name, let's say Sparkle Eichmann, decides to start breeding especially red-nosed reindeers and say they're the superior reindeer. You can actually go the other way. They should have been neutral and say, hey, listen, some of the reindeers are going to have red noses, some of them aren't, but they're all pretty good. So you got the flying reindeer. They use it for the sleigh, but the flying ones with the noses, we're going to put them up front. Okay. So that should have been the message. They should have kiboshed that. They could have changed that song. I started changing the song already. So the messaging at the end of it, and then Rudolph, and then in the cartoon they went and doubled down. They doubled down on that, right? Rudolph takes off with Herbie, the elf that wants to be a dentist, and they end up getting to eventually wind up on the island of misfit toys. That's the doubling down part, where you get the toys are pretty good toys. If you think about it, I mean, a squirt gun that squirts jelly. I mean, and changing the name from Jack in the Box to Bob in the Box. How is that anything? Now, yeah, a train with square wheels. I mean, it could have been square. They could have used like a tread, like a bulldozer or a tank. Probably be pretty good. Or a plane that flies, a boat that sinks. You can say that, but sinking boat is kind of worthless. So that those kind of toys, they're things that aren't viable. They just wouldn't last. It's like not having, not being able to survive. But there's all these other toys that weren't inappropriate. Just having a polka dotted elephant toy does not make it less of a toy. So that message could have been cleaned up a lot better. I think they just did that. And it's kind of in the end, just say, hey, listen, if you're different, we're going to ostracize you. But if we can use that difference to our benefit, then we're going to celebrate you. Wrong message. So, I know it's a cute story and all that stuff. And why do you have to ruin it for us? Well, you know what? They changed the Grimm fairy tales. Most of those kids in those stories, when it came out, they were murdered in the stories, in the Grimm fairy tales. There were some horrible stories. There was the almond tree, and there are lesser known stories, but a lot of those stories are Little Match Girl. Little Match Girl freezes to death during a Christmas, I think it's a Christmas thing, or something in winter. She's selling matches, and she goes through all her matches, and she dies in the end after exhausting all of her items that she's selling. Right? This is horrible stories. Hey, listen, I'm part German ancestry, so I'm going to say some of the German stories, they really fucked up these cautionary tales they used to tell. And the little match girl was, and there was other ones too. They're just horrible stories. I don't know how they got to be famous. It's not, they're probably because they're so morbid. So fucking morbid. But then you have the Grinch story that came out, the later ones. Dr. Seuss, he really knew his shit. See, the Grinch was crabby and all that stuff, and he saw that people, even with all the shit they got, with all it taken away, they go out and celebrate. And then he realized the true meaning of Christmas. That's a fucking story. That's something I can get behind. Yeah, the Grinch was kind of a douche. Going taking every fucking thing, even all the nails. You know, that was, but I mean, I guess you had to show how low he could go to see how high he could rise. So that brings me back to Ghost of Christmas Past. Just remembering as a child, it's Christmas. I came from a middle class, firmly in the middle, maybe a little lower middle class, but Christmas, Mom and Dad went way out, and I guess I didn't appreciate it then. I appreciate it now, but it was loot. When I say loot, I mean treasures, tons of shit under the tree. You wake up in the morning. I'd wake up, and my brother and my sister, we'd wake up some crazy time, 5 a.m. in the morning. You know, never before when it was school day. You had to drag us out of bed. But just like any kid, you're up. You want to wait, but you're wait. Sometimes you'd wait in bed. Sometimes you go and take a peek out and stuff. And sometimes you don't want to take a peek out because they said, you know, if you saw Santa, that he would leave and wouldn't leave all the stuff. So up until I was 7, I would never look outside. You know, it was just I never had an inkling it was Dad and Mom putting that shit out. Never had an inkling until I was 7. My dad had to tell me. When my dad told me, I was like, "What? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How? No way." I would have heard that. I mean, I was up to their shit already. I mean, I thought I was. Yeah, you're not going to pull any of that stuff on me. No, they did. They did and I guess because all the other kids, I was 7 or 8 years old when I found out, and so we had piles of toys. I remember tons of toys, and I have pictures of it. So big, heavy-duty toys, the Tonka trucks. If you took a Tonka truck, and let's say you were in the woods with someone, you could crush a hobo's skull with a Tonka dump truck. It was so heavily made. I mean, this was heavy. The steel that went into Tonka trucks was heavier than the metal that you get on most cars nowadays. It was just thick and heavy. The fire truck, you could stand on the fire truck. It was just crazy. And then you get like a helicopter with the big blades, and the blades, if you got the batteries, and the fresh batteries could actually decapitate someone. No, it wasn't. The blades weren't that sharp. They were smart enough for toys back then, but the guns did look like guns. When you got an AK-40, when you got an M16, it looked like an M16, a smaller version, but it was M16. And they used to have big fucking stockings with a bunch of stuff in there. And then you have the thing with the grandparents. I'm recalling that, and I know it's things you've done. I had one grandparent who had 14 grandchildren, and how could you expect her to go all out with that? But we go and see her, and she'd still put out. We'd have nice presents from her. It was really nice. I love my maternal grandmother. She was very warm. It's fun. She always has cookies and donuts and stuff like that. We do that, and then I'd go to my paternal grandmother, who was a little. I loved her just as much, but she wasn't effusive as with us, with her emotions. But she had an elegantly appointed decorations in the house, right? And she'd put out presents. She'd have bragging presents. It'd be like pajamas, underwear, socks. Real, that's the stuff she got us. But she would my paternal grandmother would actually fill the stockings too. And it was weird. The grandmother, she's the same grandmother, my paternal grandmother, my grandmother Haran. The gifts under the tree were things that you'd make fun of, that grandparents give you, socks, underwear, and stuff like that. The gifts, it's like a whole nother person filled the stockings for her. Because in the stockings, back in, now we're talking about 1968, 69, 70, 71, 72, she used to have the little electronic toys, radios, flashlights, matchboxes, little, all these great stuff. And you would have a toothbrush and stuff like that in there, an orange, because that was the thing they always did. They threw an orange in there because when she was a child in 1915, 1916, it was a big fucking deal when you got an orange in December, because they didn't see oranges in December. Just one of those things. You seen some fruit, fresh fruit. You go, wow, holy crap! They went to town. There's an apple. There was a can of nuts. That was a big thing for them. So I don't know if they did it because my grandmother was like old order German in Pennsylvania, kind of like Dwight Schrute, kind of, if you watch The Office. So you had all those as a kid, and then we still had great presents. We were getting 10-speed bikes. I remember one year, we grew up outside in the mid-Atlantic states. So sometimes it would be below freezing. Sometimes it would be 40, 50 degrees. Well, one year, we had a nice 6-7 inches of snow. And for years we didn't have snow on Christmas. But that was the year I got my 10-speed bike. And don't you know, you get a bike, the first thing you want to do is you got to fucking ride that bike. I never really attempted to ride a bike in the snow. Or if I did, it was one of those ones when you had the handlebars that came up, and the long seat with the back bars on it top. I don't know what you call it right there. But it was probably easier to ride those bikes. I guess I learned. But the 10-speed bike with a much more skinny tire, that was a great lesson to learn that day when I rode off the front door on the covered concrete and then hit the driveway, going perpendicular to the driveway for about 2 feet and then falling straight over and being out of commission for the next 2 days. That was fucking awesome. But then you get older and you get all this other things. You start getting, different toys, not the less variety and stuff like that. And then it becomes less about getting things. And then you start making the transition of buying things for other people, your girlfriend, your parents, your grandma, your brother and sister. You got to think about those gifts. And it was always the girlfriend. And it was funny, I came from a small family. I don't know if we exchanged a lot. We did. In the first couple of years, before my siblings got married, we would just exchange gifts in the family and make sure I get my grandma, my father, my mom, my brother, my sister, and then whoever I was seeing, a girl at the time, get them. And then as time went on, they started, when more partners came involved, like significant others, we started doing a Secret Santa. And then you pick somebody, you get them their gifts. But then you have to get your girlfriend a gift. And the thing I would do, my best friend at the time, he had 12 brothers and sisters and a bunch of nephews and stuff like that. And I think they did that too, right? They did the Secret Santa. And he gets gifts for people. And we do all our shopping on Christmas Eve. Did it for 4 or 5 years. And my buddy's father had a flower shop. couple days before Christmas, I was working in catering, and we would do. I would deliver poinsettias. It was always poinsettias or some Christmas arrangement of flowers. But there were tons of people would send flowers during Christmas. You know what you think? It was poinsettias and arrangements, and we'd go all over the city. We'd be driving, and I was drinking a ton and all that stuff, but he'd pay you in cash at the end of it. You have the tip money and all this stuff. And you take all the money and you buy Christmas Eve. I would buy. That was the plan. I go and get it was almost every year I had a girlfriend. During Christmas, maybe it wouldn't last to. It was only 1 or 2 years. It lasted more than 1 year, and the planning was not so great when you have to get someone who's supposedly establishing the significance of how they are in your life by the level of thought you put into their presence. And ever 1 year, I think it was 89. It was a year we were about to, I think Ceausescu in Romania was being overthrown. He was the dictator of Romania. And Panama, we were about to go to war in Panama or something like that. The U.S. was going to invade Panama. And that could have been 88, 89. But we'd go Christmas Eve shopping at the mall, my buddy and I. There was a bar in the mall. And we'd just get it all done, and then we'd go and drink in the bar. Yeah, real classy, right? And I remember that 1 year when I got all those presents, I thought it were good presents. I thought I got great presents for my girlfriend at the time. I think I got her some crazy calculator at the time, and a watch. What I should have done is gotten some jewelry, like a nice necklace, and and maybe nice pajamas or something, like a negligee, stuff like. But that's in retrospect. So I did that for a while, and then we started transitioning and started buying a little earlier. I do it a couple days before. I say, you know what? I should get these gifts a week before or something like that. And eventually there was no. The only thing I got on Christmas Eve was maybe a couple cards or a gift I forgot. But then we got into this idea. This was a new one. This is all before 2001, because 2001 changed everything. We used to do these parties when I lived with my buddy or I lived with another friend. We would have these Christmas Eve parties. That was a brilliant idea because no one was working, and we'd have a Christmas Eve party. And for a couple of years, I lived in this loft apartment. It had 25-foot ceilings. You heard the story before. I went to this Christmas tree lot, a week or two before Christmas, and they still had trees. It wasn't like a week or two before Christmas. Almost all the trees are gone. But I remember the lots being full like 2-3 days before when I was a kid. No one put their tree up before, like more than a week before Christmas. But I went to this Christmas tree lot about a week and a half before Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas, and a friend of mine owned the lot. And what he would do, he got all the trees for all the other Christmas tree lots in our part of Philadelphia. And he had it's like a half acre full of trees. And that's a lot of trees on a half acre for there. And they would be coming in and going out. You just see the trees coming. They have these state body trucks come in, they load them up on trees and take them someplace else. So I told my buddy, I said, listen, I had this station wagon. And I asked him, I said, listen, I want to buy a tree. I want to get the biggest tree we got. And he goes, well, the biggest trees are over here. I'll give you any of those trees for $50. So he sold me with the station wagon. You figure, well, there's only a certain size tree I would take. Well, he didn't realize that I wasn't going to think it out very well. I would take a tree that's bigger than the car. And I did. And I think it was still strung up, where it's banded around. and I put it on. And the back of the tree, the stump, was, which I should have put it the other way around, but I really wanted to see. I put the pointy end over it, came over this, actually went all the way over the hood, down past the grill. And the back of the tree went about 3 feet over the back of the station wagon. So it was easy. It was easy 12, maybe 13 feet high. Maybe more. I don't want to really understate, but I'll say 12, 13. If it was 15, people from Philly said, like, they were saying that was a 20-foot tree. It was a big tree, but I got the tree. I'm loading it. I gave a guy $10. He helped me get it on there, and then a friend of mine, Frank Maricone, shout out to Frank Maricone in Philadelphia. He and his brother, I think Brian is his name. They were there picking out a tree, and they saw me putting a tree on the station wagon. They were laughing, and they're going, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, you're putting it up in your house?" And he was in the loft before, and he said, "Oh, now I get it." So they helped me take it there. I think or maybe the ones helped me load it on, but I drove it to the loft, and he had these big industrial elevators, and I couldn't fit it all the way in the elevator, so I had to kind of curl it around. And there was a shitload of pine needles. It's funny, I had to sweep up the first floor of about 50 yards of the hallway underneath, and another 30 yards from the elevator on the second floor where I lived to where my apartment was. I had to sweep up all these pine needles, or my landlord would have freaked out. I pulled the tree through the door, and then we put a rope on the top of the tree, a thin rope, and we threw it over a drainage pipe, which was like easily 12 inches wide, and that was where all the water ran through off the roof of the warehouse. And we pulled it up and hoisted it and put it in a big half barrel that was cut down about, it was about 18 inches deep. And I would put 10 gallons of water in there and pulled it up. And we had that tree. We had a big ass tree, and we do this Christmas. I know it's a long story, but at the end of it, my buddy said I got the tree and he'd have to take it down. He took a chainsaw and he cut the tree down to like 6 big pieces and threw it out the big warehouse windows onto the sidewalk, and then bundled them up and left them there for the trash guys to come and pick them up. Just found this, the trash guys came by and found this big tree, Christmas tree, cut up and bundled up into pieces. But we had this huge Christmas parties we'd go and do, and the one with the tree, I recall, and this is the most memorable one. We had easy 100 people or more come in and out of that party, and I guess I partook. We had someone who was bartending. We had a keg or two, and at the end of the night, I just don't even recall. I remember the next day, I woke up in my room, and our bedrooms were on the second floor of this loft. The bedrooms were, even though the whole ceiling was open up, we had our second floor bedrooms enclosed with a walkway overlooking the rest of the loft apartment. And I woke up and I looked over in my bed, and there was someone that looked like my coworker who was married, and I was friends with her husband. And wow, I go, oh my God, and I turned around. Now I was still kind of hungover and stuff like that, and it took me a while because that was in the forefront. That's all I saw. I saw her, and then I realized it wasn't her. It was a girl I had just started seeing like a couple weeks before, which broke one of my rules of thumb, that you don't date someone right before a big holiday like that. It's just bad for relationship. You don't know, you go through Christmas, you break up with someone after Christmas. It's like, but that was a bad thing. We ended up not seeing each other after that. I didn't even know. There was no end to that relationship. We just didn't see each other that day. I don't know if I may have done something at the party. I never heard from her again. I went to a Christmas party with her like a week before, and we had a pretty good time. But yeah, I didn't go to her. I guess I was supposed to go to her house. I never called her. I was a piece of shit about that. I imagine I was. But you know what? I don't think I slept with that girl yet. So it wasn't like the relationship wasn't that far along. We had been on a couple dates, and that was very unusual that we'd been on like 2 or 3 dates, and we hadn't had sex at that point. So in my head, I thought I wasn't obligated, but I think I had a present for her. I ended up giving it a watch to someone. I saved it and give it to some girl for Valentine's Day. I know it sounds like a piece of shit thing, but she didn't call me either. So neither here nor there. I imagine something probably. She was probably upset about something, and but to this day, I'll never know unless we get if that person's listening and they come back, I'll find out. But it was only a year or two more that we had parties like that again, and then that stopped happening. So the Christmases significantly got a little more organized after that. That was in the mid 90s, and then the late 90s I started getting my act together, and then 2001 I was married, and then presents were bought a week or two before Christmas minimum. Whether it was a happy marriage or not, that was another thing you talk about at another time. And then 2007, the marriage ends. I come to the Keys. I stop drinking, and Christmases get a lot more. What would you call it? Organized, concise. And now with my family that I have now, I have, what am I saying? 90% of the shopping done. It is 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks out from Christmas, and 75% of the gifts wrapped. All the decorating done. I'm 57 years old. I just finally had it. It took a pandemic and a little maturation process for me to get organized, and that's pretty much what I had for that. We're going to do a Christmas show, but I just want to do some remembrances. I figure a lot of shows are going to be with a guest host, so I didn't want to monopolize it. So I can monopolize it without anybody else on the show. I want to thank all the listeners. We have some interesting places. We have Philippines, Cebu, Philippines, and oh my God, from a Christmas town. If there's ever been a Christmas town, I have listeners in Germany. Thank you, Germany, United States, Minnesota, Wisconsin, New York, Pennsylvania, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, no Texas. But from the Vladivostok, Russia, that is some cold-ass place, Vladivostok. And I want to thank you for listening, Vladivostok. And wishing you a Merry Christmas. I know if you do celebrate it, most likely you're Russian Orthodox. And I think your big Christmas is on January 6th. But, we start way early here. I know you probably started decorating over there too, because you're a month out. And if you are and you enjoy the show, please share it with your friends. Get as many listeners as possible. The more listeners you have, more likely I'll have the kind of sponsor I'll need in order to bring on a producer and someone that can handle the social media. I'm trying to work out this stuff with Headliner that could take the audio and put it with pictures. I wanted to do that. And I'm not talking about video. You say, hey, Jim, that's video. Why don't you just video show? No, this is something that Headliner is kind of like PowerPoint. And I guess I could do it with PowerPoint, just put it right out there. But Headliner helps you distribute it and all that stuff. For some reason, it's supposed to be better. And I haven't decided whether I'm going to purchase it or not because it's becoming, you know how I am with technology. But once again, email me at jim@keysbartender.com. You can also go to our website, www.keysbartender.com. And also, if you follow us on Facebook at Keys Bartender and Twitter at Keys Bartender. Drop me a note, leave a review, that would be helpful. And thank you again, everyone. Do svidaniya, Vladivostok, and talk to you later. Talk to you tomorrow, guys. Bye.